Hey, Rachie, this is part two of my addressing of conspiracy cats, um, addressing of your video. Right? A lot of addressing going on there. Okay, this will be a bit shorter than part one, and there will be a part three, and maybe four, depends on what I need to do. Okay, there is a claim that is persisting with our opposition that Henry Cavendish somehow determined what is known as Big G. But this is totally incorrect, as Cavendish was calculating the density of the Earth. That was his goal. But our opposition continued to assert that he did calculate Big G, and CC, Conspiracy Cats, is no different. So here is an official citation from Iowa State University ending this claim. So here we go. Here we go. You can, whoever wants to screenshot this, I'm not going to read it all out. Whoever wants to screenshot this, they can, or they can pause our screen and pay attention to Rachie, pay attention especially, and all the flat earthers to the parts underlined in red by Quantum Eraser, I think it was done this. As you can see up here, or was involved, the Earth's radius was involved in what Cavendish did. This is from Lawrence Hodges, Department of Physics and Astronomy, Iowa State University. This is the Michel Cavendish experiment. It's not an experiment. They call it an experiment, but it's not a science experiment. It's a colloquial experiment. The radius of the Earth was involved in what he did, which we all know is completely debunked due to black swan photos of the horizon being at positions that are impossible. They are not geometric. They are apparent only. So the OR value that he was using, the Earth's radius, was a mathematical OR value based on mathematics and not on real world measurements. And down here it shows Cavendish did not determine G or M. M is for mass. He determined the average density of the Earth. So he wasn't determining any of these. He wasn't determining G. He wasn't trying to prove gravity. He pre-assumed it as part of his apparatus, but his whole shtick, his whole thing, wasn't for determining G or Big G or the universal gravitational constant. He didn't do that. That's where people are wrong. Conspiracy Cats is wrong if that's what he thinks he did. There was no. A lot of people get that wrong. He didn't do any of that. He determined the average density of the Earth. And this is from Lawrence Hodges, Department of Physics and Astronomy, Iowa State University. As he himself, as far as I know, this man here, Lawrence Hodges, was incorrect about that himself until he corrected it. Okay, until he read more into what Cavendish did and realized he was incorrect. So Cavendish was not attempting to prove gravity, a force of gravity between masses or anything like that. He wasn't attempting to do any of that. And he didn't do any of that. He was trying to determine the average density of the Earth, not gravity or calculate an average or calculate the universal Big G gravitational constant. He wasn't doing any of that. So when people say that he was doing this or using the Cavendish observation, not experiment, as proof of gravity, number one, not only are they 160 years out of date, because I'm making this in 2021, because Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity toppled all notions of gravity as a force from the throne in 1915. It became demoted to an effect. So it's not a force. According to mainstream science, it's not a force anymore. And many physicists out there have said this. So I don't know why people like Conspiracy Cats and others keep pushing gravity as a force when it's even accepted by mainstream science at the highest echelons that it is not a force, that it is an effect. All Einstein said was that the uneven distribution of mass causes the effect of the curvature of space-time. That's the basics of what he said. So there is no, and in Einstein's field equations, they only account for one mass at a time. So there is no mass attracting mass. There is an undefined effect of gravity. That's basically what it is. En masse within Einstein's description of general relativity. So Cavendish did not determine G or M, which is for mass. But this is the one we're going to focus on, G. He didn't determine that. He wasn't trying to prove mass attracts mass. He wasn't trying to prove gravity. He pre-assumed that it was a reality. And that's what he did. And so did this man, Michel, Reverend John Michel. He also did the same. Both of those, Michel came before Cavendish, or handed over the apparatus more or less to Cavendish, and there was another man involved as well. But the whole point of the thing was to determine the average density of the Earth. Now, why did that? I don't particularly know what was the point of that, but it was definitely involving a pre-assumption of a globe Earth with the Earth's radius being involved. So this is complete and utter proof that all claims that Henry Cavendish or the Cavendish observation is any kind of an actual experiment that proved gravity or calculated big G or anything else. None of that happened. He wasn't going to do any of that. It was determining the average density of the Earth. That's what he was doing. Conspiracy cats and everyone else that states any different are wrong. Gravity is not a force according to mainstream science, and it hasn't been since 1915, and it won't be again. That's that. It's demoted to effect status by Einstein since then, 106 years ago. So conspiracy cats and all the rest of them are wrong. So if he's telling you anything else or anything to do with mass attracting mass or gravity is a force, it's incorrect. Okay, we're moving on. It is also constantly asserted incorrectly that Isaac Newton postulated publicly that gravity was a force of attraction between masses. He actually did not do this, and here is a letter that he, Newton, wrote personally to a philosopher of his time that disproves this claim from our opposition. I think this man's name, the philosopher, was Dawkins. I could have that name wrong. I had it before, but I've forgotten it. But this is the letter he wrote to this man. Now, it's claimed by a lot of people that Newton claimed mass attracted mass, and there was a force of attraction, like magical force of attraction between the two, and this was gravity. But this letter disproves this. Okay, one moment now. Just going to make it a bit bigger, but in the center of the screen. Okay, from Isaac Newton. It is inconceivable that inanimate brute matter should, without the mediation of something else which is not material, operate under and affect other matter without mutual contact, as it must be if gravitation in the sense of Epicurus be essential and inherent in it. And this is one reason why I desired you would not ascribe innate gravity to me. That gravity should be innate, inherent, and essential to matter, so that one body may act upon another at a distance through a vacuum, without the mediation of anything else, by and through which their action and force may be conveyed from one to another, is to me so great an absurdity that I believe no man who has in philosophical matters a competent faculty of thinking can ever fall into it. Gravity must be caused by an agent acting constantly according to certain laws, but whether this agent be material or immaterial, I have left open to the consideration of my readers. That was Isaac Newton, a letter he wrote to a philosopher of his time, who was claiming that Newton, and saying to people that Newton was claiming that mass attracts mass as some kind of a magic force between them, and he was not. And this letter is the proof of it. Now, what people will do on the board side, I can't say conspiracy cats will do it because I can't say I've heard them do it, but I've heard other people on the opposing side trying to divine the thoughts of Isaac Newton, and try to take things like this letter and try to change them around to suit their narrative. To say, well, what he meant by this was that, what he meant by that was this. You can't divine the thoughts of someone else. This is the letter he wrote, that Isaac Newton wrote to the philosopher. This is the letter. This is his words. That's that. Okay. So, also it is asserted that Newton's laws of motion hold true always, in all circumstances. This is also refuted, and here is the citation to support this. Okay, so let's make this a bit bigger, bring it into the center a bit. Right. The discovery of quantum mechanics first, and then in the behavior of light, and then in the behavior of matter, finally culminating in 1926 with a full equation of quantum mechanics, which told us that the laws of motion of Newton were not right, and had to be modified with other laws which are quantum laws of motion. Richard Feynman, Nobel laureate physics. Richard Feynman lecture on quantum electrodynamics. Okay, so that was from Richard Feynman, who stated that Newton's laws did not hold true all the time. When it came to quantum mechanics, which is very small things, they didn't hold true. So they were not, and are not 100% correct. Because that is something that a lot of the globe side like to push, that Newton's laws are this and Newton's laws are that. I have my own problems with them, these laws of motion, but that's immaterial at the moment. But it's not just your everyday person like me who has said there's problems with his laws of motion. You have someone who was a famous in the world of science, Richard Feynman. He's one of the most famous people since Einstein. So refuting it. Doesn't say it's 100% wrong, but says it's not right, not quite right. What was it? His exact words were, the laws of motion of Newton were not right. So I make it correct. So there is two citation and a letter from Newton to support what I've said. Okay. It is also claimed that the gravitational constant allows for us to calculate orbits correctly and a whole host of other things, right? This is a claim, I heard this claim being made by conspiracy cats within the video. Which gravitational constant, right? Because it's not the one Cavendish calculated, as he didn't calculate one at all. Is it CV Boy's 9.8 meters per second squared? Or is it Einstein's universal gravitational constant, which is 671 million miles per hour, equal to the claimed speed of light? Now, besides my own problems with the speed of light, I have to put that in there because that is the claim from Einstein. For a start, the claim of orbits already begs the question of a heliocentric belief and a sky vacuum above us. And once again, most of the people claiming this big G think that it was calculated by Henry Cavendish, which, as the earlier citation showed, was not true, as Cavendish did not calculate big G. So who calculated big G and what is little g then? Okay, so this is a controversial topic as a lot of people and websites get this wrong. A lot of people get this wrong. A huge amount of people get this wrong. I can guarantee you that conspiracy cats gets this wrong because a huge amount of websites and even universities get this wrong. Because that citation I showed earlier, this one here, most people think that it was Henry Cavendish that calculated big G, and they're wrong. And then other people claim that it was Charles Vernon Boyce that actually calculated with his 9.8 meters per second square, and that may have been correct until Einstein came along, because that's when his 9.8 meters per second square became little g. Okay, I'll give an explanation here. Big G is the universal gravitational constant, the speed that gravity is claimed to move across the universe. Little g is the calculated average rate that objects are claimed to accelerate toward the Earth's surface. So big G is equal to the speed of light calculation, which is 671 million miles per hour, as this is the universal gravitational constant in accordance with Albert Einstein's colloquial theory of general relativity. And little or small g is 9.8 meters per second squared, which is Charles Vernon Boyce's calculation from the very late 1800s, which is the supposed calculated average rate that objects are claimed to accelerate towards the Earth's surface. So now that we know this, we can confidently say without a doubt that big G is Einstein's universal gravitational constant, calculated at 671 million miles per hour, and little g is Charles Vernon Boyce's 9.8 meters per second squared calculation of an averaged earthly acceleration rate. So that's big G and that's little g. Henry Cavendish wasn't involved whatsoever. Now, it was pointed out by a friend of mine that both these calculations, big G and little g, are both calculated with a vacuum in mind, as Einstein's universal gravitational constant is the claimed rate that gravity moves through the universe, which in the heliocentric model is a vacuum. And little g was calculated by Charles Vernon Boys as an average rate that objects of differing sizes and weights would fall to the Earth's surface through a vacuum. But if both these calculations are encompassing a vacuum within their inceptions, then how do they have two completely different rates? If it's the same gravity moving at the same, like through a vacuum, then how can they have two different rates? What slowed down the universal gravitational constant, which is 671 million miles per hour? What slows that down to 9.8 meters per second squared? Just because it supposedly would have come close to a mass, which would be the Earth. There is no explanation for any of this. Basically, the problem here is that Einstein obliterated everything that came before him. So even the 9.8 meters per second squared calculation from Charles Vernon Boys, that's thrown out the window as well, because that involves gravity, which is a force of mass attracting mass, a force of attraction between masses. But Einstein demoted gravity to an effect status, and he does not account for any. He does not, and it cannot be accounted for any more than one mass using his. He cannot account for any more than one mass using his field equations. So there is no mass attracting mass. There is no 9.8 meters per second squared in Einstein's theory of general relativity, which is the currently held description for gravity by mainstream science. That is what they hold up as the current description of gravity. They don't hold up Isaac Newton's or Henry Cavendish or Charles Vernon Boys, although they seem to not want to let go of it. They don't hold it up when their feet are held to the fire. They state Einstein. I don't know why they hold on to all these other things. And people like conspiracy cats will keep on trying to tell you and other people that gravity is a force of attraction between masses. It is not, and it hasn't been officially since 1915. So, as 671 million miles per hour and 9.8 meters per second squared are not even remotely equal, right? They're not equal. They can't equal in rate. They're completely different rates. Yet they're both gravity moving through a vacuum. So I don't know. Okay, this Rachie is more doublespeak and contradiction from the globe Earth model that will not be pointed out by CC, as he probably does not even know most of this, but he will claim to know all about gravity. So I leave this second section here, and there will be a third section in the next few days. I hope you're getting something out of this, and it's giving more balance to what you are being told by conspiracy cats. It might be a bit heavy, I understand. You might need to come back to it at another time. It can be a bit confusing. All this stuff means I have to tell you about it or tell people about it, and I have to know about it. And as flat earthers, we have to know about it. But it's all complete and utter nonsense. I have zero belief in any of this. I know what causes matter vector directionality. It's purely down to relative density and nothing else. But as flat earthers, we still have to know this stuff. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Take care.